Hey guys, so I'm out here shooting another video. I recently just posted a photo of the FJ on Facebook in a FJ Cruiser group, and I've gotten tons of questions about a few things that always come up, whether I meet someone out on the trails and they notice a few specific things on the FJ that they like. So I'm going to answer those questions now. One of them being my Roto mounts on the C-pillar. The other one being rear bumper. I guess I don't know what we call it. Basically just chop the back off. I'll talk about that in a minute. What I've done with the roof rack, basically just made a custom inset rack. We'll go over that. What else we got here? Oh, the winch setup. I've made a custom setup for the winch. There's a few more things. Let me think here before I forget. We'll touch upon the interior. There's a few things inside that we'll talk about. If I think about it as we're going here, we'll cover it. So the first thing we'll talk about, I guess, is a Rotopax mount. So I really wanted mounts. There's obviously a ton of different ways to mount these packs. Here it is right here. This is a Rotopax 2.5 gallon. They obviously make, the same company makes fuel packs now as well. Very similar item. I believe the mounts all work for fuel packs and Rotopax. Just call them or whatever and ask on our website as well. We have a link at the bottom. If you click on that to order anything, much appreciated. Let's see. So basically what we did here is simply drilled through the C-pillar and mounted some brackets here. You will see a little rust coming out. I'm the kind of person that I use this rig. I get my money's worth out of it. I have a blast. I'm not worried about it looking pristine, shiny, making sure it looks great all the time. It's functional for me. I like the look of certain things, of course, but it just needs to be functional for me out on the trail. Make sure it's going to hold up for everything we put it through. So a little bit of rust coming out, not a big deal for me. What I would recommend if I did it again was when you drill, basically what's happening is the rust is actually from the bolts themselves. I've taken it off. I did paint the spot I drilled through. It's the bolts on the inside that are rusting, and it ends up dripping through here and coming out. What I would do is obviously touch up, paint anything you possibly can before you put these on, and use a butyl tape. It's a really sticky rubberized tape that you can put behind here instead of silicone. Silicone eventually will fail. It gets really hot in the sun, being a black mount. It will eventually fail. So use butyl tape, which basically just stays soft all the time, and it'll squish on there and make a nice seal, and you shouldn't have any problems. You could always run a bead of something around it if you want. Most of the time, if you're running the packs, it's covered up anyway, so it's not that big a deal. So one thing you're going to run into when you drill through here is there are some folds meant for crush spots in there. So if you don't hit it just right, you might hit directly on that piece of sheet metal that's in there. Not a big deal, just kind of drill through. If you have to widen these holes, you could have a little playroom since the mount is big enough. Any questions, again, just let me know. Don't be afraid to do it. If it's something you're not, if you've done a little fabricating, you know how to drill something, you're not afraid to mess with your rig. As you can see here, I don't know if you can see, it's pretty scratched up. I got white because I knew I was going to beat on it. Tons of pinstripes, a little bit of mud on here, but door dings, branches, all sorts of stuff. Like I said, it's functional for me. I try to take care of as much as we can, maintain it, but not concerned about keeping it pristine. So what this ends up doing here is mounting like this. Everyone asks if it's strong enough. It's definitely strong enough. Filled up with fuel, it's no problem whatsoever. Bounce around on the trails. There's a lot of support behind this C-pillar, so you shouldn't have any issue with strength. And all this does is twist right on here. Just get a little tighten. Once it locks in there, just crank it down. I do have locks for these. Just insert the lock and the key, and boom, they're on there. It's a great setup. I love it. Don't regret it one bit. It's a nice way to just get them tucked out of the way. The other main reason I did this is because when you add weight and mount fuel packs, or any fuel can, or any weight additional, even the 35-inch tire on there weighs quite a bit, it does put a lot of stress on the factory hinges. You can obviously get a bumper that has its own hinge on there to take that weight off, but my option was just keeping the stock rear bumper, or what's left of it at least, and go that route. To the rear bumper. So what I've done here is simply cut out the center section of the bumper. For me, I kept banging it on stuff, ripping the little trim off the bottom anytime you go over rocks or an edge of some sort. It was just tearing up the bumper. I love the look of it personally. Some people do, some people hate it. I don't care. All you will end up having to do is, since these are actually attached to the center part of the bumper, I just reached in here with a Sawzall, cut it out. Well, these pieces aren't per se, these corners do pop off separately, but inside here there's another piece that's attached. You just have to Sawzall through it. You'll figure it out if you get in there and see how it all works. One additional thing I've done is my poor wife burnt her leg pretty good leaning into the back here, up against the exhaust pipe. Probably depends on what exhaust you're running. It might not be an issue for you. So I just bent this little bracket I found laying around, bolted it on there. Again, not for looks, just strictly for function. It works great. You end up hitting your leg here first before you end up touching the exhaust. So it works out great. No one's burned themselves yet since that. What else have we done? Okay, let's see the roof rack. Onto the roof rack. Climb up here. So what I've done is I purchased just a universal cheap roof rack, universal, from Walmart, anywhere you can, Amazon. It ends up fitting perfectly between the factory rack, if you could see that. Oh, hang on here. And all I've done is purchase these brackets right here off eBay. I think I typed in, I think they're meant for holding weights on race cars. I'm not sure exactly what I searched now that I think of it. Just search around for a weight bracket of some sort, and all it is basically something that clamps around the rack here, and then I stuck a bolt because it's pre-threaded. You can buy whatever thread you like, whatever pipe size diameter you need, and I bolted it right through, bolts right into here, and it just holds this whole rack in there. And it is sturdy. I mean, we stand up there, we put all our weight up there, all our luggage, it's perfect. Never had an issue with it. The front, what I usually end up doing is just putting a roof bag up here. So it's pretty convenient. I have two big storage containers. You might have seen in some photos. I put them up here, put the roof bag up front. Any extras, it ends up working out really well. Saves you from buying a $1,000 roof rack, unless you really need something that big, you know. Moving up to the winch. So what I've done here is bought for older Tacoma. They actually sell this whole winch plate here for the older Tacomas that bolt right up to the factory frame of the Tacoma. I think it was maybe around 150 bucks. Just type in Tacoma winch plate. It'll look very similar from this in all the photos. I found them everywhere online. It wasn't a problem to locate at all. They're still making them, so that's your best option. So what I've done is just bolted directly through the bumper support, cut out the factory plastic bumper that was in the way, bolted to the bumper support, which I'll tell you right now is not enough just bolting it to there. This is pretty thin metal right here. I did go all the way through with like a 4-inch bolt all the way to the backside, but this is hollow. So what you want to do is also give it some support additionally over to, and let's see if we can get a shot in here. I got paint flaking off here, and again, don't care, we'll just touch it up. I bent this bracket myself out of some pretty thick steel here. It's about inch wide, and put additional bolts here to the bumper support and then all the way back on the frame rail. So there's 3 points that it's bolted to, and what that does is keep, when I'm pulling on the winch, keeps the whole winch from tipping down, because you will see without these brackets it would just try to fold down. But now that it's supported all the way back into the frame rail, it's not a problem. I've used it many times. We had 3 vehicles in line once pulling out, so all the weight was pulling 2 additional vehicles, and it was completely fine. Just watch for it. Of course, you kind of got to use your head, little fabricating, make sure it looks right. If you don't feel good about it, add more welds, add more bolts, you know, do what you think needs to be done. If you got questions again about it, let me know. Let's move to the interior here. There's a couple things in the interior I just wanted to cover. So one of them here is this additional storage packs I've mounted on the passenger side dash here. All this is an aluminum piece I got from Lowe's or any hardware store. And see if you can see the bolts. Behind here, tucked in here, is just some screw head bolts that go through and hold this bar here. There's a couple bolt locations in here. And I just mounted some packs right on here, and it's really convenient. These two are just for random storage, and this one's a trauma pack. Little first aid kit. I just zip tied it to there. We go through this stuff all the time. My wife as co-pilot is constantly in and out of these things. I'm even thinking about a way to mount more somehow, or bigger packs. It's just really, really convenient. All I had to do is drop the dash down, pop out the plastic that's underneath, and you could literally reach your hand right behind this whole area. Some concern people have is with the airbag. This setup is not an issue. If you mount anything above here at all, you know, it could start becoming an issue if you did have an airbag go off, because what happens is the airbag comes out and folds down over the front of this. So it would come in contact with these. It shouldn't be a problem. At least it would still do its job. But anytime you put something up here, which now that I'm telling you this, there's a CD, there's a spoon up here, that's the kind of stuff you don't want up there when it does go off, because that stuff's flying right at your face. But this right here is not an issue. Just try not to mount anything above on this spot. Another thing I've done is added this I get asked about a lot, which mount I use for this tablet. So we have a tablet just mounted right here in the center. All it is a vent mount from Amazon. It was really cheap, 10-15 bucks. If it breaks, buy another one. No big deal. It's been lasting on here, bouncing on the trails 100 times. It's got a little support that it rests against here, grabs onto the mount. This tablet's not heavy, so it really isn't a problem. I did run all the wires in here. Let me get a shot of this. I cut out a little piece of plastic there and ran all the wires behind the dash into a converter, basically, just to plug all these in, keep all the wires out of the way. This is another thing you get asked about. Got the sunshine in here. A magnetic phone mount. That comes in really handy for when you're sitting up here. You have your phone and the tablet for our GPS and all our pre-downloaded maps. It works really great. The other thing I've done, which I've gotten asked a few times about, is the shift knob. So I took the factory shift knob, ripped off the bottom. It is in two pieces. I think I might have just snapped off the bottom plastic after you unscrew it. I chopped down the shift rod here and epoxied it and slammed it on there. It's a super tight fit. This thing ain't going anywhere. You can probably just snap it loose if you needed to. At first I ran it for a couple weeks with just tapped it on there with a rubber mallet, and it wasn't going anywhere. I did end up just epoxying it just in case. You probably don't even need to do that. It is really nice because the factory shift knob is super high. You could probably see how much lower it is here. It made a huge difference. I mean, that factory shift knob, as we all know, is pretty ridiculous. It was all the way up to here. So that's nice. Gets it tucked out of the way. The next thing I get asked a ton about is the CB mount. So the CB mount, we purchased the holder here off, I believe, eBay as well. It's just a single DIN roof mounted housing for any in-dash radio. The CB I bought is just a single DIN size. Purposely I bought it for that, to fit snug right in there. I went through the headliner, through this light, reached in there and put some washers and nuts behind this, so with a big fat washer up there. So it is holding on the weight of the headliner, but I also epoxied the headliner up to the steel. And again, this has been bounced all over the place on rough trails and has not broken loose whatsoever. It really does its job. I also snaked through here with just a coat hanger over to the other light, a external speaker for CB. It's really cool how it works because it's right behind your head. You can see that shot here. So it's basically just being blasted right in the back of your ear. Works great. You're not getting sound muffled up front, or the internal speaker here would obviously be muffled if it was stuck in here. So I just ran that. Couple bucks, maybe 10-15 bucks for the external speaker. Wired up. It really does its job. All right, so I believe that is it. I'll say it again. If you got any questions, let us know. Talk to you soon. See you guys.